Hi folks, thanks for joining me for this week's Stillwater tutorial. I was watching a video by Rhys Wadley. I'll stick a little link up in the bar. He was going through his top 5 patterns for the spring, and one of the flies that caught my eye, he called it the Kieran Jenkins Cormorant, and I made a few inquiries, and Kieran kindly gave me a photograph of the one he uses, and then Steve Cullen told me that actually there's an original and it's a very, very old fly, best fished in the smaller sizes. So I've kind of took a combination of both of them and put this together. I'm sure you'll find it enjoyable, and it looks like it's a killer of a pattern. So without further ado, let's get into it. The hook and device then is a Hanak H 260 barbless hook. This one's at size 12. It's a heavy wire hook in black nickel. Now the size 12 of the Hanak 260 actually equates to probably a size 14 in old money Camazan hooks. So it is quite small, and that's what Steve Cullen recommended to me, that it's best fished in the smaller sizes. The thread I'm going to be using is the Veevus. It's at 30 denier, and as you can see it's a white thread. So as always with the Veevus or any of the Nano silks, a touch of super glue on the shank will go a long way to making your life a little easier when it comes to body rotation. So I'm going to use my thread just to move that up and down the shank, catch in behind the eye, and then get a bed of thread down approximately to the point of the hook. Then I can come in with my snips and remove my waste. Now the body of the fly, I don't know what the original dressing was, but I'm going to be using some Veevus Pearl. It's P01 and this is the medium. I've already got a little bit pulled off, and I'm going to tie that in just where I started. Sorry, I've got some fibre stuck in my fingers there from my bench. Just where I left off, and I'm going to run that back to approximately where a barb would be on a barbed hook. Now the reason I chose to use the Veevus for this is because the white thread will allow me to get the best out of the Pearl Lurex. So what I want to do is just build up very, very slight taper. You'll notice I'm not coming up very far because I need that room at the front of the hook. So I'm just building a slight taper up to where I'm going to finish, and as you can see I'm well back from the eye there. Now I'm a good distance from the eye, and that's quite important. So next I can bring my Lurex, I'm going to get a turn onto the shank of the hook, and then I'm going to just bring it up in overlapping turns. This gives it a little bit more strength, although this Pearl Lurex is actually quite strong. Now if you were of a mind to, you could probably put a layer of UV resin on, which would fully protect it, but it would add a very slight weight differential to the fly. Probably negligible, but you never know with these things, especially with these small flies. You know, if you want them to fish high in the water column, you want to avoid putting weight on at all costs, really. So I've just secured that off, and then I'm going to remove my waste. Now what I'm using for the dubbing, I don't know what Gareth or Kieran used or what Steve uses for that matter. I'm going to be using some of this Hends dubbing, and I'm going to use number 93. So it's, Steve says yellow, Kieran says green. This kind of looks like it's something in between. So I'll just take a little bit off. The Hens dubbing's pretty good. It goes on no bother at all, and I can get a really nice tight dub on. And I'm just going to push that up. Then I can make a small thorax area up here. Not overly worried about them straggly ends. I'll just pull them back out the way. I'm not going to remove them. I'll leave them there because I like the way it straggles out. Now the wing then, I'm using some Comp Candy blackjack marabou. I really like this stuff because the plume, the whole feather's usable. You know, a lot of the marabou you can buy, the bottom of the stem's just pointless. You've got to strip it all away and it's wasted. But this is just, you can use a whole lot. I'm using about a thumb's nail worth. I don't want a particularly heavy wing on this fly. And I'm just going to twist that up. And I want as much of the tip in as viable. Just going to dampen down the ends, get rid of any of the really straggly bits at the point, and then before I dress up my wing, I'm going to add a little bit of wax just to help me with the grip, and then I can lock that wing into place. Very quick fly to tie this actually. I dare say it's fairly easy to rattle these out. So it's obviously meant for competition. I'm going to come with my thumb and forefinger, trim that marabou up. Quite a small fly. Damp down the wing just to make my life a little easier. And next what I want to do is add in my hackle. And what I'm using is a feather from this hen cape here. Now I've already pre-selected a feather. It's quite a small feather, and I've trimmed away the waist and left a little bit of the stalk to catch in. Before I catch that stalk in, of course, I'm going to add a little bit of wax just to give me that grip. I'm going to catch the stalk on my side, and then I'm going to trap the whole lot in. Come back to where I started. Now I can see my Veevus thread is starting to unravel, which is a quality I like in it actually, but I don't want it on this particular fly. So I'm just going to twist it up so it's nice and tight. Again, I'm going to come back to my Hends 93 and just take a small amount of dubbing and get it onto the thread. Like so. Then once that's in place, I can bring that up and create my head. I'm going to bring it to, once I've run out the dubbing, I'm going to bring my thread to the front near the eye, and then grab my hackle pliers, pick the edge up of your feather that you've tied in. I'm just breaking the spine, and then I'm going to come initially around the seat of the hackle on itself, and then I'm going to come through one turn through that head, bringing my hackle eventually to the eye of the hook. Just very similar to a Montana, I suppose. I can see why it's so effective. It's just got the attributes of a few different flies that are very successful. So once I've got that trapped in place, I'm going to remove my hackle plier, wet my thumb and forefinger, bring everything back out the way, get a few turns in to lock that all into place, and keeping tension on my thread, I can grab the tip of my feather and remove that. And then to finish off, the old trick with the UV resin on the thread. Just got some on my hackle there. I need to remove that before I cure it, or the hackle will just be stiff and break away. So I'll come in with a whip finish tool. Oh, and that's snapped away for me. That's handy. Then I'm just going to use my fingers to pull off any of that resin that got onto my hackle. And I also see I've got one trapped in there as I've whip finished. So just get that all out the way. Then I can come in with my UV torch and cure the head. And there we go. Now I don't know what they call it I called it a Kieran Jenkins Cormorant. Reese called it that. Steve tells me it's Gareth Jones's. I'll just say it's a pretty cool looking fly. And thanks for sharing it, guys. I know a lot of the competition boys, they hang on to their patterns like the grim death. The only way you can get it off them is if it's from their dead gripping hands. But they've managed to part with this one, and I'm very pleased. Thanks very much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please think about clicking that button. I would really appreciate your support.